Yo, what's up, guys? How do you guys like Arrays 2? A lot harder workshop, right? Yeah, that's how it goes. So I'm going to go over the last two problems, the slice and the reverse, and then we will talk about objects, okay? Sound good? All right. So basically, we asked you to recreate slice, right? The method slice, my slice. But this time, we want you guys to know how to implement the fact that you can pass in a negative number. I never told you that you can do this, but you can. I don't know why your mind would think to do this ever, but you just can if that's how you want to do it, okay? That's how slice works. -1 just starts from the back of the array, okay? Okay? So, const my slice equals a function, and I'm going to write it like that. Nothing new here, right? That's how I write functions, right? Nothing scary about writing functions like this, right? Okay. So, my slice is going to take three things, two of which are optional, right? Because if you pass slice nothing, it just returns a copy of the array, right? So, the first thing, the first argument will be, I will call it original, array. Then the second argument, I will say start, which is optional, and the last argument will be end, which is also optional. So, with JS6, I'm going to do this. If I do an assignment operator inside of a function parameter, what does that mean? Huh? I'm setting a default value for start. That means if someone doesn't pass in start, it will be 0. When you don't pass in any arguments for the start, it will always be 0 for the regular function slice. It will always go from the beginning till the end. So, if I don't pass in a stop, what will this be? Original array dot length -1. It's a long first line, but this way I don't have to write two annoying if statements, right, inside the code. Inside this function, it will be a lot easier to read. So, now we have to take into the account if, well, okay. Let's think about this at a higher level, right? Before we start coding, before we start thinking about what to write next. If we just took care of the cases of if nothing's passed in, we are saying that the start and the end are numbers and indexes where to start and stop, right? And the other edge case for this problem is that if we pass in negative numbers, right? And that will also be where to start and stop. So a good first part where to start when solving this problem is to handle those edge cases. If the numbers are less than 0, then we have to do something, okay? So, if start is less than 0, we are going to reassign start. Because isn't it easier to make it a positive number and then just loop normally? Because we will be looping, right? Isn't that easier? It's not much easier to think about, right? So we will just do start equals original array.length plus start. What does this mean? Let's say I had an example array up here. Right? And let's say I wanted to slice off, oh geez. And if I do console.log example array dot slice, and I pass in -1 in the terminal, you'll see an array with just 5 in it, right? Because -1 just gives us this. Right? So, if I say that start is now equal to the original array's length, example array's length, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the start, plus -1, we would start at index 4. And like how slice works, the starting index is inclusive, and the stopping index is not inclusive, right? And this will work no matter what negative number we put in there, okay? And the same logic can be made for n. End is now going to be equal to original array dot length plus end. Make them positive numbers. Just subtract from the back of the length of the original array. Does this logic confuse anybody? It's okay. It's a little confusing, but it is there. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So now that we have these if statements, right? We are going to want, at a high level, we are going to want to loop through the original array, starting where the person who called the function told us to, and stopping where the person who called it told us to, and take everything there and return a new array. A way to do this is to just say const return array and set it equal to that, an empty array. This is like saying return string is equal to empty string. It's just something we're going to push things into. Okay, we're going to push things into this array. So here we can write our for loop. We're going to let I equal to the start, because start is either going to be 0 or whatever the person gave us, right? And we took care of the negative number aspect already. And we're going to loop until I is less than end is no longer true. Okay? And end, the same thing. End is either the end of the array or whatever the person gave us. And we took care of the negative case as well. Okay? And then each time we will do I plus plus. And then in here, I like doing result array dot push original array at I. So I'm saying result array dot push. That means we're going to push something into the back of this empty array during the first iteration, right? What is that something? Original array at I. So at -1, we would be starting at the 5, but the -1 turns into a 4. So original array index at 4 would give us 5. So if we do, and then here we would just obviously return result array. So if we do this, console.log my slice of example array, -1, geez, we get nothing. All right. Why is that? Sick. 4 and 4. If I don't pass anything in. How does that work? Oh, because I did -1 up here. Oh, right. Okay. That's my bad. So the reason I got tripped myself up is because when I said if you don't pass something in, I put original array dot length -1. So that would mean at the last index. So that means in the for loop, it would have to be less than or equal to. We still want to capture that, right? If I is less than end, and end was at this point, when I gets to be equal to this point, and this was just less than, this would never be reached. So that means this for loop is technically never running when I just put in -1. So if we want to stop it at -3, we would get, dude, what the f? Is that not how you do it? Oh. Is that not how you do it? Oh. I'm like doing it backwards. Start at -3 and stop at -1. Yeah, okay. That's my bad, sorry. Because -1 is actually the end of the array. So it doesn't make sense to start at the end of the array and go that way. Because that's not how slice works. It goes here and goes that way, okay? It doesn't go reverse. Yeah.
I'm a little confused on the -1 being the end of the array. Is that like without length -1? Is that the same? So you're saying -1 index end of the array, right?
Not -1 index. -1, like if I did console.log example array at -1, it's undefined, right? If I did console log at -2, it's undefined. There's just nothing there. There's no index -1, right? -1, but the built-in JavaScript method slice allows for negative numbers. And the way that function like runs is it says, okay, if it's a negative number, we will start counting from the back. However, with negative numbers, it is not taken into account like the 0th index is the first element. -1 will be the first element from the back. Does that make sense? It's a very specific thing for slice, not for accessing elements in the array, right? So we had to, in this function, mySlice, we had to incorporate that into our function here. Because we want to recreate the function slice, and that's what slice does. Does that make more sense? Any other questions on this before I do reverse? Yeah. So, in my honest opinion, I think that all variables should be declared with constant because it will avoid possible bugs later on in your code in case you're reassigning something that you shouldn't do, right? So I like using const, but for some things you can't use const. Like if I said const I equals start, it would break because at the end of every for loop, what are we doing? I plus plus. We're reassigning I plus equals I plus plus is reassignment. So you can never do that with like incrementers or counters or things like that. But const result array is equal to just this array. It's always equal to that array. What is inside the array changes with push, but the value is not being reassigned to a different array in memory. Okay? Because arrays are complex, so that's how that works. We'll talk more about that on Monday. Complex versus primitive. With me. Does that make more sense? Yeah, I mean, I just think const is better. You don't have to use const, you can use let, but I would get to have it using const. Does that make sense? Like important values, you should define with const. Yeah. Then it would throw an error. It would throw a reference in it because plus equals is shorthand for result string equals result string plus
Whereas
whatever.
array, you're just pushing.
Yeah, dot push is different. You're mutating a value. You're not reassigning. Consts can never be reassigned. Let can. So you would say let result string. Any questions on that? Okay. So the next one, rotate array, they gave this like crazy short, like super sleek solution, which yeah, you guys can just read it. But I'm gonna solve it in a way that's sort of that might be easier for you guys to understand. Is that cool? I'm gonna do a solution that isn't from LearnDot. Is that cool? All right. So let me just comment all this out. And I'll move this down here. So I will say const rotate array. And this is going to take an array and a number. So basically for this, we want to rotate, if the number is 1, we want to rotate everything one place, right? So the 1 would go here, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. If the number was 3, we would rotate it, and so on, so forth. So my solution that I will show you works, but in the problem it says that you can expect that the number will always be like the length or whatever, and it won't be greater than the length. So if it's like, if you rotate 5, you just go back to the beginning, right? It's just like a full circle. But like really, if you rotate 6, then it should be the same thing as 1. But yeah, whatever. We're not going to focus on that. We're not going to do that edge case, okay? Because that would be a more complex solution. Anyway, so how do we do this? If we wanted to, but we do have to take into account of negative numbers, right? That was part of the problem? Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is in here, I would say let results array, I'll do const, I'll switch it up sometimes. Let results array equal to an empty array. And now we're going to say, we are going to do the same logic as we did in the above problem. Instead of worrying about a negative number, we will just make that number positive, okay? And we do that by saying, if num is less than 0, we will say num is equal to array.length plus num. And this will be the same logic as before. Is anyone still confused on how this logic operates, how this logic works? Now, yeah.
Sorry, can you just repeat that again? How you're making this positive by doing?
Right. So like, if we rotate this thing one place, right? The 1 will be here, the 2 will be here, the 3 will be here, the 4 will be here, the 5 will be here, right? But if we rotate this -1 places, the 1 should be here, the 2 should be here, the 3 should be here, the 4 should be here, the 5 should be here. And that's the same thing as rotating it 4 places. Because if we rotated this 4 places, I said if -1, the 1 is here, right? Because you just rotated 1, but the other way. But that's the same thing as rotating it 4 places, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the length is 5, and the number is -1. So the length plus -1 would be 4. And that will be true no matter what. And it's easier to think about this because now we can loop this way. And you might be thinking, well, why are we looping? Why do we need to do that? Well, we have to basically, what I think a solution easier to understand than the solution they gave you, because that was like very short and very elegant. I like it, but I think it's easier to understand is that we need to find a place, basically in this array, we need to find a place to start. And once we find that place, we want to take every element and push it in here. Then, we will go back to the beginning of the array and loop until that starting point and push everything into it. And that is the other way of solving this problem. At a high level, does that make sense to everybody? If I gave in a 1, right? If I threw a 1 at you, rotate this one place, right? I would write 2 for loops. The first for loop would start at index 1, 2. Wait, no. What did I do? I always get confused with this question. Oh no, we don't start. Yeah, we don't start at 1, right? We want to start here. We want to start at the array length -1, because if we rotate this 1, the 5 is going to go here, right? So we want to capture that 5 first and put it in the beginning of the result array. Then we start at 1. No, I mean, we don't start at 1. Then we go until this point, right? It's not 1. Like, the number is going to be different, right? Like, in our for loop, sorry, this is like a little confusing even for me, you know? So, in our for loop, we first need, a starting point. Then we go to the end. So, we do for let I equal, and our starting point will be array.length minus num. Okay? And we will go until I is less than array.length is no longer true. And inside here, all we do is we push array at I. So now, if this num was 1, we would start at the 5 and push that into result array. Right? Does that make sense? And since the num is 1, we will then we will write another for loop down here, starting at 0 and going as long as I is less than array.length minus num. And then I plus plus. And here we do results array dot push array at I. So we could say, we could pull this out if we want, right? We could say const pivot point will be equal to array.length minus num. So we want to start at the pivot point. And then here we want to go up until the pivot point. So if we console.log, what is this? Rotate array. And we pass in example array and 1. Oh, I'm not returning anything. See, I do that too, guys. We got 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I do 2, we got 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. And if I do -1, we get 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. And if I do 0, this loop actually never runs. Does this solution make more sense to you than the other? Does anyone have questions on how I did this? Does anyone have questions on how I did this? As you can see, it's okay to have questions because I messed up doing this like 3 times. So it's okay. Yeah.
I guess it's just a question on the other. I'm not sure I understand the other solution either. I don't know if you could explain that.
Oh, let me see the other solution. So basically, I'll just copy and paste it over. So basically, if original array is example array, right? And then original array dot slice negative rotate num. Let's say num is equal to 1. I feel like 1 is the easiest one to reason about, right? So if we want to rotate this thing one place, it would be 1. It would be 2. No, it would be 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Does everyone agree on this? So here we are saying if num is 1, original array, which is example array, dot slice of negative 1, right? This dot slice of negative 1, what is that? Right. It's just going to be an array of 5, right? That makes sense. That is the front of the array. The end of the array will be original array dot slice from 0 up until that negative rotate num. And you remember that the second stopping point, the second argument, is not inclusive. So it will not include this. So end will be an array of 1, 2, 3, 4. And then at the end, you return front dot concat end. And dot concat, which you guys learned yesterday, it will take this, whatever this array is, and concatenate it with this one, putting it on the end, making one array, returning a copy of the array. Okay? So this is actually the same thing I did up here, right? Because what is slice really doing? Slice is looping through, telling you, looping through from your starting point up until your ending point, and returning a copy of the array. And that's exactly what we did here. We took the starting point, made it our pivot point, started there, got everything after it, put it in the front, that's the front, right? And then we put this stuff on the back of it, starting from 0 and going up until that point, which is the same thing that's going on here. This is just a lot cleaner and more fancy, right? Does that make sense? Any other questions? You know, I thought the workshop was hard, last night. Like, for you guys, I'm pretty sure it was hard. So don't, be too stressed out about it, okay? It's okay. Like I said, on the first day of class, workshops are not intended to be finished, okay? But you should finish them eventually if you didn't get it in class. You should try and do them again. I think that's good practice, okay? Any other final questions before I dive into objects? Yeah.
Can you also, at the bottom, when you say return front concat end, return open bracket, front, comma, dot, 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 end, close bracket?
You could do that. This is also ES6. You guys don't have to know this for like the admissions exam or anything like that to get in. And you kind of don't really need to know it in the boot camp at all. This is kind of a fancy thing. But it's actually, I like this a lot. I'm happy you brought this up. This is called the spread operator, ... What's it saying? Since I have this bracket here, right, these brackets, that's saying I'm returning an object literally with two indexes. But it's not really two indexes because it's ... front and ... end. That means front needs to be an array, right? Or an object. And what it does is it spreads it out automatically for you. That means what you can think of visually in your head is it deletes the brackets and puts all of those things in this new array. Comma, everything from end. It spreads it out. This is another way. It's called the spread operator. Research it if you want to on your own. Try and incorporate it in some of your own solutions. Whatever you guys want. Also, the Sudoku project is open. Once you're done, if you want to do it, it's optional. I recommend doing it. You don't have to, but I recommend it, so please do it. But you don't have to. Just send it to me or David, okay? All right, objects. Objects. Yeah, I'll just leave all this stuff. Okay, so objects this is an object. It is open, closed, curly brace. This is an empty object, okay? That's all they are. And I'm done. I'm just kidding. So objects are actually the most, I think, common data structure, or data type in other programming, like in computer science, you know? They exist in most programming. Python, they're dictionaries. In Ruby, they're hashes. It's all the same thing. What objects are key value pairs. Okay? That's all they are. Key value pairs. Unordered key value pairs. What do I mean by key value pair? So let's say I have an object called Bilbo, right? If you guys have seen Lord of the Rings, or if you've read The Hobbit, or if you've read the books, whatever. Bilbo is a hobbit, right? So I'm going to say type hobbit inside. I have now put in a single key value pair inside of this object, which is called Bilbo. The key is the thing to the left of the colon, right? Type. A key of type, and its value is a string hobbit. And let me tell you something right now. Keys are all strings. This is what it actually is, okay? However, in JavaScript, you can actually omit the quotes. You can just do this, okay? Any questions so far? Like arrays can hold any type of data, right? Booleans, numbers, strings, arrays, objects. The values of objects can also be anything. They can be arrays, they can be numbers, they can be booleans, they could be another object, they could be an array holding objects, holding more objects with all arrays in them. They can be anything, okay? So, we can do age is 111, right? And we could say stole ring from Gollum, and that is true. It can be anything. And I said keys had to be strings, right? But there is a way to make a variable something like this too. If I said, but they have to be equivalent to strings, okay? So if I said let age, if I said let this is the age, and I set it equal to age, if I did bracket, this is the age, and I console.log Bilbo, I still get age. I still get age as the key, right? And the reason for that is this bracket. It's not an array. It's just saying, the bracket is saying whatever this variable is equal to. And that is this string age. Because all keys in objects in JavaScript are strings. The values can be anything. Any questions? So why objects, right? Why are objects cool? This seems like more things to write. Well, the thing is for objects, let's say that you were working and you had an array of data, right? And every single thing in that array, there was like 1,000 indexes, was an object. And they were all people. They were all users, okay? And everything in there would have a username key. So in your code, you could say user.username, and it would make more sense. There wouldn't be user at index 300, you know? This is a more descriptive way to like write bigger things, if that makes sense, you know? Like this is more readable. Like Bilbo has a type, it has an age, and he has this skull ring from Gollum blue, right? So it's a more descriptive way for things. If that makes sense. I think I said that wrong, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. Because to access things in arrays, you need to know the indexes. Whereas here, you can do .age. I'll get to that. The bracket at age. And this brings me to my next point: how to access things from an object. And it is the same way you access things in strings and arrays, except there are no indexes, because objects, the order is not guaranteed. They are not ordered, okay? However, something else cool about objects, the lookup time for something is constant. To look up, if you want to look for a certain value in an array, you must loop through the array until you find it. You must traverse through the entire array until you find that element, right? Whereas if you want to check if something has a key, you just say .age, and it says if it's not there, it'll be undefined, and if it is, it'll give you the value. I'll get to the dot in a minute. But it is the same way as arrays and strings, meaning Bilbo bracket age in a string form. This will give us 111. Why is this a string? Because all keys are strings, right? And you might be saying, oh, well, it's a string here, but if I change this to type, it works. Because this, even though I omitted the quotes, this is still a string. All keys in JavaScript are string, of objects are strings, okay? So, what if I did this? This also works. just like arrays, right? Bracket notation, current array at I. Same thing. JavaScript says, okay, Bilbo, oh, I see brackets, I'm looking something up in this object Bilbo. Oh, we're looking for this is the age. Oh, there's no quotes, so I have to see what this is, what value this is pointing to, or is. And that is a string age. So it looks up age. If I wrap this in quotes, nope, I would get undefined. Because there is no key in here, this is the age. If I did, now I would get 111, right? 11D. Because this is a string, this is a value of a string, this is the age in camel case, right? So it's going to look literally for a key of the same thing. Oh, it's right here. Without these quotes, I'm now referring to the variable here, right? And that is actually age. So we would get the one here, because this is also the variable age. Make sense? And even if this was just age, it would be the same thing. Same thing. Any questions so far? I understand objects are new, and everything you're hearing is a little weird, but it will get better with time. Okay? There's just a lot of things to remember right now. So, if I told you about accessing things, how can we add things? Can we plus equal objects? No. Can we dot push objects? No. It's actually easier than you think. It's no method. If I wanted to add relatives to this, to Bilbo, right? If I wanted to add relatives, I would say Bilbo at string relatives is equal to Frodo. And if I console.log Bilbo down here, you see Frodo is now inside of the object of Bilbo. Basically, you're saying, Bilbo, look for the key relatives, whatever's value is there, it is now going to be equal to Frodo. So this is not only a way to add things into an object, but also to reassign things at keys. Because every key in an object is unique. It has to be unique. If I tried to add another type, type is now Frodo. There is no type Hobbit because I overrode it with Frodo like that. Keys have to be unique in objects. To add something to an object or to reassign something to an object is the same notation, the assign operator. Kind of like saying array at index 1 is now equal to this. You're replacing whatever is there. You're mutating that. This is the same concept. Okay? Yeah. No. Okay, like, honestly, if you console log this thing a million times, it will probably be the same, but it's not guaranteed. Some things might be in different order. There is no order, there's no indexes, right? But like, yeah, usually it's going to be at the end. Well, there is no order. You know, you can't. There's no way to like track what's in front of what. You know. Like the order of these things don't matter because you would never say like first or last. You know. You would just look up what they are, and it's constant. Any other questions? So now, wait, any other questions? Yeah.
Did you ever use an object rather than an array to use numbers that are increasing sequentially as the keys? You know what I mean? Like you use an array, right?
What do you mean?
Like key 1 equals cool guy, key 2 don't like him. You know, like seating chart.
Oh, like as in like the keys would kind of be like indexes.
In a row. Like,
No.
Okay, you can't do that.
I mean, you could, but like you wouldn't, because
you have to use an array.
well, you could do that. Like you could do that like in a for loop, like I0, you know, and then you just like my object at I would be equal to whatever the thing is, you know. So all the keys would be indexes.
Create them all, but they might not be in order.
Well, there won't be an order. Like there is no order, right? There is no nothing, right? It's just like a mess. It's just like a space, you know. And it's just like you pluck things out, you know. But the thing is about objects, which is like valuable, is that the keys are descriptive. So key at 1, key at 2, key at 3, you don't really know like what the value is going to be. Whereas if I say key slow ring from Gollum, that is probably going to be a boolean. Key age is probably going to be a number, right? So that the point behind objects and key value pairs is description.
I guess you couldn't use a number as a key anyway, so you have to use a string.
It would be it would be a string, but it would be like if I did here, what I was going to do is I was going to make another object, and I was going to add things to it. So if I did if I did const Gandalf equals this, and I say Gandalf at 5 is equal to wizard, and I console.log Gandalf, do you see how it's in quotes? Coercion. It takes that value and coerces it into a string. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. So now I want to introduce to you another type of notation that I like using with objects. You can use whatever you want, but it's very specific cases when to use it, and this is called dot notation. I keep saying dot this, dot that, right? And you might be familiar with dot notation, like, I don't know, dot push. It's everywhere. The dot is everywhere because you can dot off of objects. You can access properties in an object using a dot. You can also add things to an object using a dot, okay? So, instead of that, I'll do dot species. Right? It's the same thing, except here, I did not have to put a bracket with a string. Here, I can omit the quotation marks, and it literally takes everything to the right of the dot, coerces it into a string. Well, it doesn't coerce it, it just is a string. And then it puts it as the key in the object. So, what if I said let value equal defeated Balrog, right? And I say Gandalf dot value is equal to true. So that means I'm adding something into this object Gandalf, right? I'm adding a key of defeated Balrog with its value true. Right or wrong? It says value, true. This is what I mean by specific cases for dot notation. Dot notation does not evaluate variables, okay? They don't see, it doesn't, JavaScript no longer checks to see if this thing is a variable or not. It just takes anything to the right of it and puts that into the object. Any single word without special characters. So, if I did this, and this is why bracket notation is very useful, because now we have defeated Balrog. Bracket, so why would you ever do this though? Why wouldn't you just use dot, 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 dot? Because, well, why, I'll just tell you, looping. You can loop, you can traverse through objects as well, okay? So let's add I'll show you in a second. Let's add another value. Gandalf.colors equals an array with white. And then look what I can do. Gandalf.colors.push gray. We have an array of white and gray. We are saying Gandalf.colors, if it's there or not, it doesn't matter. That is now assigned to a value of an array with one element, a string of whites, okay? And then, on line 95, we say Gandalf.colors. What is Gandalf.colors? Gandalf.colors is an array with white. It's that array. .push, gray. So we have white and gray in this array, which is the value of the key colors. Any questions? Okay, so you guys know about for loops, and this is sort of similar, but it's a for in loop, okay? So here, we are going to say for, usually we say let I equal 0, right? Or let I equal array.length minus 10, right? Whatever. Here we will say just let key. Let key in Gandalf. So what is this key variable going to be actually defined as? Whoa! Gandalf. Species, defeated Balrog, colors. This is how you can get all of the keys in an array, printed or you could push it somewhere, whatever. Key will be the key of everything. But how do we get all of the values? We just do Gandalf.key, right? Wrong. Undefined. Why is that? Why is this undefined? Yes. Yes. Dot notation takes everything to the right and looks up a key in the object Gandalf of whatever this is, right? So, this is why bracket notation is dope, okay? So now key is different every time, and we can get everything in there, and we don't have to worry about what the key actually is. But we can figure out what the key is by just console logging key here, right? Species, wizard, defeated Balrog, true, colors, and array. Also, this in is not specific to for loops. Before I do this, I can say console.log colors in Gandalf. Nope, 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 nope. And it returns true. If I say colors with a 0, it will return false. The in operator is actually an operator that returns a Boolean value, true or false, if that key is inside of that object. The key is on the left, the object is on the right. This could be useful, or you can never use this. It doesn't matter. But it's there for you to check if a key exists in an object. Any questions on the in operator or the for in loop? Seriously, any questions on the for in loop? Okay, fine. I'll continue. What else do I have to tell you guys about? Aha! So, before I go into the slides, wait. Okay. Before I go into the slides, there are 2 methods I want to tell you about. Yes, more methods, like push and shift, right? This is going to be keys and values. And they will be off the global object. Yes, there is a global object. Object.keys, and you pass in Gandalf. What I could do? Let me console that. What? Oh, it's object.keys, my bad. Object.keys returns an array of all of the keys. This could be very useful, okay? Just because it might be hard to think of a situation where this might be useful, but this will be very useful to you because sometimes arrays are easier to reason about than objects, and vice versa. It depends on the problem you're solving. But sometimes you want an array of all of the keys. Let's say, I don't think there's a way, because there's no length property on an object, right? I didn't mention a length property. That's because there isn't one, okay? So a way to check if an object is empty is you could do object.keys.length, right? Because this returns an array, so I can just do .length off that, and I get 3. So that's a good way to check if something is empty, okay? And another thing that I wanted to show you guys, global object.values pass in Gandalf. And we get wizard, true, and an array of white and gray. This object.values returns an array of all of that object's values in an array. Okay? It's the same thing as object.keys. And remember, this isn't like define a variable, set it equal to an object, put things in it, and then that variable like Gandalf.keys, Gandalf.values. This is off of the global object. A lot like array.isArray, right? You pass an array into it. This is the same thing. You pass an object into it, and it will return an array of keys or an array of the values. Use them however you want. Any questions? I don't think wait, hold on a second. Alright, so tomorrow not today, with David, you guys are going to learn about, not learn about, but you're going to get a little intro to something called this. This is a keyword in JavaScript. This is immensely complicated, and you don't need to learn about it for the entrance exam for full stack. Okay, you don't need to know about that for admissions. However, this full stack wants to give you a little bit of a prep for what this actually is, so they just wanted to introduce the concept to you in bootcamp prep. Okay, so I will just show you that, like, if I just did console.log this, I get, whoa, what is that? It's a crazy, crazy, crazy object. Whoa, there's a property called console. Console.log. That's weird, right? JavaScript is an object-oriented language. So this is actually the global window object. That's what this is referring to. That doesn't mean this is the global window object. What this is has a lot to do with scope. That is for tomorrow, though, okay? And you don't have to worry about this scary object. Because usually when you're referencing this, you don't really want the window object, you know? And you wouldn't want to use this when you're talking about that either. You could just do, like, window. No. But there's a... Whatever. Cool. So, any questions before I continue with the slides? It's okay to ask questions. Yeah.
You have some more to determine if object is an object, like the
No, well, object's type of will be object. Right? Arrays are technically objects, but they're a little different. So, yes, arrays type of will be an object, but an object's type of is also an object. I think, like, type of null is also a type of object. But don't worry about that. That's like, I'm pretty sure that's an actual bug in the language itself. And no one will fix it, because then a lot of things will break. Everywhere, at once. Okay? Alright. How you guys feeling about objects? Key value pairs. Hashes. Hash tables. Dictionaries. Keys and values, values and keys. Objects. So in this lecture, we will talk about what an object is, why they're useful, the type of an object. I just showed you, it's just an object. We won't spend that too much time on that stuff. Accessing, adding, changing. I forgot to show you deleting, but that's okay because it's super easy. The in operator, the for and loop, object.keys, and nested arrays and objects. Okay? So, what is an object? An object is an unordered collection of key value pairs. Unordered meaning there's no indexes, meaning there's no order, okay? Like arrays, objects store values, but instead of storing them in numeric indices, objects store values in string keys. I showed you this, right? Objects are just a list of key value pairs. Let my array is value 1, value 2. So here, we have my array is an array of strings, value 1, value 2. And down here, we're console logging my array at 0. We get value 1. Then we have my object, and that's going to be equal to a string key 1 and a string key 2, about string value 1, string value 2. The way you separate key values is the colon. String key 1, colon, string value 1. You console log my object, bracket, string key 1, and you get value 1. Any questions? Nice. So why is this useful? Because that was annoying, right? Writing out all the string, key, one, value. Why would you do that, right? So consider representing pushing the cat as an array. Let pushing equal an array with string pushing at index 0, then at index 1 we have 7, then at index 2 we have a string gray and tabby. An array is a good place to hold an ordered list of values, but it doesn't store any information about what those values are actually representing. An object's string keys allows objects to store more information about the values within it. What? My bad. So here, God damn, one second. So here we have pushing the object, and we have the name key, and that's value will be the string pushing. We have the age key, and that value will be the number 7, and the color key, which will be the string gray and tabby. So now we know more about those values. That pushing is actually a name of something. The 7 is actually its age, whatever that thing is, and we know what color it is, gray and tabby. Does everyone see the value in this? This is more humanized, right? It's cool, I guess. So, type of object, if you console log type of object, you get object. That's it, okay? Type of object gives you object. Simple and easy. Type of returns a string, right? Okay? You don't get anything weird with type of, it's just a string. Cool. So creating an object you can do by opening curly braces. And an object's keys are always strings, but you can actually omit the quotation marks. Keep doing that, sorry. But it's just pushing the cat again, right? But here we omitted the quotes. So yes, technically, not technically, literally, this is a string, but you don't see any quotes. That's because you can do that when you're defining keys in an object, anytime, okay? It will just take whatever is here, and it knows that this is actually a string value, and that's how it's stored. Any questions? Yeah.
You mentioned you want to use const or variable.
So const is actually a great way to use for objects, right? Because objects store a ton of information. These values could be functions, okay? And we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Well, not me, but you know it. So you don't want to. So by using const machine, we know that machine will never be overwritten and will never lose any of the information that is inside of it. And that's very essential, right? Here it says let, because this isn't important information, but const, yeah, I would say use that for an object. Any other questions?
But you can still add to the object with
Yes, because you were not reassigning anything, you were mutating. You were saying when we assign things, well, when we assign things, if we wanted to change the name of Pusheen, we would just do @name equals this. We're not actually changing what the object is. We are going into the object, looking up a key, and reassigning that value of that key. That's a form of mutation, and it's the same thing as like changing the value of an index in an array. Right? Array at index 1 is now going to be equal to whatever's to the right of the assignment. It's the same thing. So we're not changing what the variable is. We are mutating something inside of it. So const, it wouldn't be affected that way. But it would be affected if I said Pusheen is now equal to false. No more object. Then JavaScript will throw an error saying, what do you do? Any questions? So accessing things, there you have it. It's the same thing as strings and arrays, except we are not passing in numeric indices, we are passing in string keys, name, age, color. Not a key in this object. Oh, that's undefined. If you try to access a key of an object and the key does not exist in that object, the return value will and always be undefined. Any questions? Any variable or expression that evaluates to a string can be passed into the brackets. Right, so this is the same. And you saw this with arrays as well, right? Array at I gives an I changes every time, so the index changes every time. It evaluates what that variable is. So if I say key to check is equal to name, a string name, and I pass machine at key to check, and then or machine at string col plus string or, it's actually looking for name and color. Any questions? At the end of the day, the thing that you need to get values in an object are the keys. And you pass the keys into brackets. Or you can use yeah. No, you can. But then you need to use. I think you can. Yeah, you need to. You can't do that with. You can't do that with dot notation. You have to use bracket notation. So if I did like Gandalf at is cool, you set that equal to true. Console blah, blah. Normally you wouldn't do this though. But yeah. Because they're just strings, right? Yep. Normally you wouldn't do that though. You know? I mean, sometimes, maybe it'll have its use case somewhere down the line. But usually, like, if I wanted to do that, I would do that. Camel case. Think of, like, I like naming keys like I would name variables, you know? Because this could get confusing. Because keys could be an entire book, you know? But you wouldn't want that. Right. You can also use dot notation. And dot notation is cool. You don't need quotes. You just do dot name, dot age, dot color, dot key to check. Oh, why is dot key to check undefined? Because it takes everything to the right of the dot and looks for that key. It doesn't it doesn't check to see if that's a variable or not. It just looks for that thing inside of machine. So dot name exists. Name is here, machine. Dot age is here. Dot color's here. Dot key to check equals name, but no one cares. It's because you're using dot notation. So it's looking for key to check. Where is key to check? It's not here, so you get undefined. Dot notation is quick and easy to use, but just be careful. It doesn't evaluate variables. Any questions on dot notation? And you can use dot notation to reassign values or add values to objects as well. They have all the same use cases as bracket notation. So you use bracket notation or dot notation to add a key value pair. So I said machine at sister add a string sister is now going to equal to Stormy. Pusheen.brother is Pip. So we get sister, Stormy, brother, Pip. This is simple, right? This is easy to understand. Whatever is at sister, whatever is at brother, is now going to be equal to Stormy and Pip. This is not only adding, this is also reassigning, because keys are unique, okay? If there was already a brother in here, that brother would be gone. No more brother. We get a new brother now, okay? Keys have to be unique. Like I said, use bracket notation or dot notation to change a value. So now we say Pusheen at age is going to be equal to 8. Pusheen.age plus plus. Console.log Pusheen age is not. Because it is 7 here when we define Pusheen, but then we reassign it to 8. And then we do age plus plus. We add 1 to it. So we get 9. This makes sense, right? Deleting. I didn't show you guys this, but use the delete keyword. There's actually a delete keyword to delete a key value pair. So if I said delete space Pusheen at age, delete Pusheen.color, we only have an object with a name in it now. It's okay that I didn't show you this because it's very straightforward and very logical sounding, right? Delete Pusheen at age, delete Pusheen.color. It gets rid of the whole key value pair, okay, in the object. And there's no undo, okay? There's no undo button. It's gone. Any questions on the delete keyword? Cool. Almost there, guys. I know this is a long lecture, but there's a lot to learn about objects. So, like I said before, the in operator returns true or false depending on if the key to the left of it is inside of the object to the right of it. So name in Pusheen returns true. Look, name's right here. So we get true. But is sadness in Pusheen? No, sadness is not in Pusheen. So we get false. Logical, right? Is name in Pusheen? True. Is sadness in Pusheen? False. Easy. But the in operator is used in a for-in loop. So the for-in loop loops through all of the keys in an object, right? Let key in Pusheen. So the key, it will loop through the object, and this variable, which doesn't have to be called key, that can be called anything, okay? Key will be assigned through each iteration, each key in Pusheen. So Pusheen's key is Pusheen at key. Pusheen's name is Pusheen. Pusheen's age is 7. Pusheen's color is gray and tabby. So, since you get the, like, where's the value? Because you get the key, you can get the value by just doing Pusheen bracket key. That's how for-in loops work, and that's why they're so powerful, because of bracket notation. You can get everything in an object by using a for-in loop. There's nothing like new about the structure of for-in loops. It's still a for keyword, parentheses and curly braces, but there's no more colons, semicolons. There's only let key in Pusheen. Let variable in object, okay? There's no telling it when to stop, it just goes through everything. Yeah. No, I mean, okay, so I always do use key because it makes sense. But sometimes another word would make more sense. Let's say this was a week object. And each key was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Would it make more sense for this to be let day? So then, in all of your logic in the for-in loop, it would be weeks at day, week at day, right? The point, see, variable naming is actually low-key, really difficult to be good at, okay? And it's important to get good at it so other programmers can look at your code and not be like, what is going on, you know? It's an art for your code to be understandable to the majority. Okay? And it takes practice. Even I'm not so good at that sometimes. Because something in my head might not make sense to everybody else. But like in that case, if it was an object of weekdays, it would make sense for that key to be day, because everything inside of it would then be referring to day. And you know that that day would be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Yeah. Like if I did names, like let name in Pashin? Yeah, then I would do Pashin bracket name. If I do Pashin bracket name with no quotes, JavaScript will know that that is a variable, and it will try to evaluate that. And that variable name will be a key in each different variation. If I did Pashin dot name, it would give us Pashin every time. It would give us the name every time. Dot doesn't evaluate with the variable. But yes, you can do let name. You can make this variable a name of a known key here. That would be very confusing, but you can do that. Just remember to use bracket notation in foreign loops. Okay? Because if this was a dot, it would just look Pashin.key every time. Any other questions? Cool. Use the for loop to loop through all the keys in an object. Oh yeah, so this is exactly what I just said. Pashin.key gives us Pashin's name is undefined, undefined, undefined every time. Okay? Because what does dot notation do? I didn't give you a solid definition. So it's just like it takes everything to the right and looks up that. It doesn't evaluate the variable. It's very literal. Pashin.key. What is key? What is key? Oh, it's not here. Undefined. It doesn't bother to look it up. Does everybody understand? Does anybody not understand? Okay. So, like I said, there are these methods that are very useful, and object.keys gives you an array of all of the keys in the object, right? So if I did object.keys and I pass in the Pashin object, what I get spit out to me is an array of name, age, and color. And these are all strings. Because keys in objects are strings, okay? This is a memorization thing. Remember that object.keys exists, and that is what you get, an array of keys, okay? Use it however you want to. Sometimes object.keys is very useful, but sometimes I see people try and use it in loops, and it just is not necessary, okay? Because you are already in a loop. So you will already have all of the keys at some point in the loop, okay? Nested array. I didn't show you this, but objects can store any type of value, including arrays and other objects. So here we have the colors is now an array of gray and tabby. Well, I did show you this with my man Gandalf. So Pashin.colors bracket 0. Pashin.colors bracket 1 gives us gray and tabby. Because what is Pashin.colors? What is Pashin.colors? It's an array. So that array at index 0 is what? It's gray. That array at index 1 is tabby. And it's very literal, right? This is literally this array. So at that index, what do we get? That's how you access values inside of that. you guys did the same thing yesterday with nested arrays, right? Array at 0 at 1, at 1 at 2, whatever. For grids, for grid purposes, right? This is another thing. This is how you do it. Just like if that was an object, Pusheen dot siblings dot sister. Pusheen dot siblings dot brother. Pip Stormy. Now, Pusheen has a siblings key, and its value is an object. And inside of that object, there are two key value pairs. Sister Stormy, and then brother Pip. So I do Pusheen dot siblings dot sister. And if it goes on and on and on, it's just dot this, dot that, dot this, dot that, dot this, dot that. It links off of each other. You go into. Okay? Any questions? If you console log Pusheen.siblings, you would get this entire array. This entire object.
Yes.
But if you console log Pusheen.siblings.sister, Pusheen.siblings.sister is just stored. Make sense? Make sense to everybody else? So we talked about an object, why they're useful, what its type is, accessing, adding, changing, and deleting key value pairs in objects. We talked about the in operator and how it's used in the for in loop, and then object.keys. I showed you object.values because why not? It's literally the same thing except the opposite. And then I talked about a little bit about nested arrays and objects, which shouldn't be that new because you guys did nested arrays yesterday. So the concept is kind of the same, except now objects are in the mix as well. Arrays can hold objects with arrays in them, and then objects in those arrays inside the objects that was in the original array. Right? Okay. Is everyone good? All right. Take like a 5-minute break, and then I will slack out pairs, and you guys get started on the workshop.